What makes you worthy? How to create yourself over time. What makes you worthy? That is, where do you get your self esteem from? What's the measure of your worth? Is it your grades? Can you only feel worthy if you get a high grade, an A plus? Well, what happens then? What if you get a C? What if you get a B plus? What if you get a D? What if you have an F? Does that mean you're a C student, a B plus student, an F student, a B plus person, a C person? This is not a good measure of your self worth. Are your feelings of self worth dependent upon having some desired quality like being smart, attractive, or athletic? Is it dependent upon meeting your goals, graduating in 4 years, getting a good job, getting a good grade in the course? Is it dependent upon performing well, getting good grades, earning a lot of money, running in a fast race? Is it dependent upon being superior, winning the game, or being better than me, for example? If so, then you will always feel like a failure. Why? Well, if your worth depends upon meeting your goals, well, you're going to feel unworthy because you're often going to fail to meet your goals. It's not always going to happen that you're going to meet your goals. If your worth depends upon showing how smart you are, you're going to feel unworthy because you're often going to do dumb things, and other people are going to always seem smarter than you. If your worth depends upon performing well, you're going to feel unworthy because you will often perform less well than you want. If your sense of self and your self-esteem depends upon being superior to others, well, you're going to feel unworthy because there will always be someone better. Always. So what are the consequences of this type of thinking? Well, let's first start with a little bit about how we develop. We develop in non-linear ways. Let's imagine that this is what the person you want to be, where you want to be, or the type of person you want to be, or the type of skill you want to develop, whether it's learning French, learning how to paint, being a good dancer, a good basketball player, or what have you. And let's say this is the level of your development over time. Well, you start off and, you're at a low level. You're just starting off. And as you work harder and as you move over time, you do better and you do better and you do better. But what happens is that it's not a linear line. You get higher, you do better, you do better, and you do better. But look at the line. It's curvy. Sometimes you have an accomplishment, but then you fail. Then you have more accomplishments and then you fail. Or you get better and then you lose some skill, and then you get better and then you lose some skill. Perhaps it's the end of the day and you're tired, or you've just started a new skill, and if you started a new skill, your developmental level tends to go down. So development happens in fits and starts. It's not linear. You don't always go up and get higher and higher. Sometimes it takes a period of staying where you are before you get better. This is how we develop. Now, what happens if I define my worth in comparison to where I want to be, my ultimate goals, for example? Well, there's our curve. Here we are. We're getting better and we're better. And here's where I am right now. But this is where I want to be, let's say. Well, if this is where I want to be and this is where I am right now, and if I define my worth in comparison to where I want to be, well, I'm not in a good way. Look at how far I am from where I want to be when I start off. Well, then I must have failed. And the second step, I've improved, but I've still failed. And I'm going to fail all the way down the line. Look at how much I've improved, but I'm still a failure because I'm not where I want to be. I'm not a great basketball player. I'm not a great painter. I'm not the best dancer. I'm not even as good a dancer as I want to be. So I'm a failure. My worth is, I'm not going to feel worthy about myself if I define myself constantly in comparison to where I want to be. I'll always feel worthless. But look, you say, well, what if I'm successful? Will I feel unworthy then? Well, the answer is, well, yeah. Let me show you why. Even if you're successful, even if where you are now is where you want to be, you're where you are, there it is. You started off and you're where you want to be. Well, what happens when you perform well? Let's say again, you've done well in your basketball game, or you've done a great dance. Well, there's fear. What's the fear of? Well, the fear is that you're not going to do as well the next time. You're always going to be afraid of not being able to be where you want to be or stay where you want to be. And so the next time, even if you do better, there's still going to be that fear. There's still going to be that fear because always I might lose my edge. And if I lose my edge, I won't be where I want to be and I won't be worthy. If we define our worth in terms of where we want to be, we're not going to feel worthy. I'll always fear that I'll lose my worth by failing the next time around. How about if you define your worth in comparison to other people? So there you are. So you're starting off, you did pretty well. But your friend, your buddy did better than you do. Well, how do you feel? You feel ashamed. You feel not so good about yourself. So you work harder, you do better the next time. And hooray, you did better than your friend. Your friend even did better more poorly than he did before. How do you feel? I feel proud. I feel good because I'm better than somebody else. And then I get even better. But what happens is the other person gets a little better. I'm still better. Hooray, I'm feeling proud. Hooray, I'm happy. And more time goes on. Except now, your friend or the other person is doing better than you. And how do you feel? Well, you feel ashamed. Again. If you define your worth in comparison to other people, you're going to feel unworthy. Your self-worth becomes dependent not on me, but on the other person. My self-worth depends upon you. That's no good because it's always going to fluctuate and I'm not going to be able to feel good about myself unless I do better than somebody else. And look here. Look at this strange thing that's happened here. This happens a lot in sports, for example. So somebody starts off poorly. They do better. And then they do better again. And they do better again. Look at this, steadily increasing. At this point here, you've done better than you've ever done in the past. And yet you're in the World Series. The Boston Red Sox are in the World Series. Look at how well they're doing, but they lose to the Yankees. And how do they feel? They feel horrible because their self-worth depends upon whether they're going to win or lose. Even though in this hypothetical scenario, they got better and better and better over time. They did the best they ever could, but they got beaten. This is an occasion for celebration, not celebrating the loss, but celebrating that I've done better than I have ever done before. If you're going to define your worth compared to others, you're going to be miserable. So if you shouldn't base your self-worth on intelligence, your grades, your performance, or your superiority, how should you define your worth? Continuous self-improvement. Comparing yourself to yourself. Comparing yourself today to where you were yesterday, or last week, or last year. Continuous self-improvement in baby steps. All you need is baby steps over time, and they add up. Incremental learning, they add up, they add up, they add up. You don't have to worry if you're doing poorly, not as well as somebody else. You don't have to worry if your grades are not as high as they could be. All you need to worry about is how to do better today than you did yesterday. So let's take a look at how this looks. So there's our line, our nonlinear line of development. Here's where we started. We started at a low level, and what happens is, this is where I want to become. Oh, and I look at this and I go, this is where I am now, and look at what I want to become. It's so overwhelming. Look how far that is. How am I ever going to get there? I'll never become who I want. I'll never become a great baseball player. I'll never become a great architect. I'll never become a graduate, for goodness sakes. Look how far it is. Well, let's not focus on that. Let's just do some work. And what happens is you get an accomplishment. You could feel good about that accomplishment. You can break it down. Look at the next step, the next baby step. And then, of course, what's going to happen is you have that accomplishment, but at some point you're going to have a failure. Again, if you define yourself in terms of your accomplishment only, you're going to be in big trouble because you're going to fail at some point. And look at the curve. The curve is I fail, and then I accomplish. And then I start something new. I fail, I'm struggling, I'm getting better, but then I get my accomplishment. It doesn't come all at once. So when I fail, I've got to see I haven't learned it yet. I just haven't gotten there yet. It doesn't mean that I'm bad or I don't have an ability. It means I haven't developed the ability to do something yet. I need courage to keep persisting. And then I'll have an accomplishment. And I can feel good about that. And then I'll have to start again and I'm going to be moving higher. And then let's say this is where you are right now. Let's say that in your course of studies, let's say it's your English course or your sociology course, and you're improving and there you are. But you look at this and you say, but my God, look at me. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be. How am I going to get there? How can I feel good about myself if I'm not where I want to be? There I am. There's an answer to the question. The answer to the question is to not be concerned about being there now or even necessarily ever. It is to look at yourself now. I am what is good about me now. That's who you are. You are who is good about you right now. Appreciate that. Appreciate what is good about where you are now. Even if you're here failing, look at that. You're further than you were before. Look to yourself and appreciate where you are now. You say, I'm not who I want to be, but you're never going to be who you want to be. I'm not who I want to be, and I never will. That's what this says. You must have compassion and humility for yourself. Compassion for yourself in that no one is ever perfect. Even the most perfect person will never be perfect. You will never really get the goal that you really want to be. You can get closer to it and closer to it, but you're never going to get there. That's why we need humility, not arrogance, and we need compassion. Nobody can get there. But what I can do is I can appreciate how far I've come. I can appreciate where I am now. And I can be grateful for all the progress I've made, even proud of all the progress that I've made. And this is where I want to live. I live here. Where am I now? I feel good about what I've done. What's the next step? And this is where I live. This is your cultivation zone. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get great grades. All you have to do is focus on who you want to become and take the next step, the next step, the next step. Appreciate who you are now while looking to take the next baby step to make yourself better. It's all you can ask of yourself. You are not a fixed thing. You're a process. You change over time. You get better over time by virtue of working hard. There's no shame in not yet being who you want to become. You never will be fully who you want to become. No one is perfect. There is no shame in not knowing how to do something. There's no shame in not knowing how to do something. The only shame is in not trying to do something about it. Be happy as you take each step in the right direction, rather than feeling ashamed that you're not where you want to be. You're not a fixed thing. You are who you are bringing yourself into existence. You are who you are bringing into existence with each baby step you take. So appreciate who you are now, the success that you have already made, how far you have come, even as you seek to continuously cultivate a better self over time. That's the key to feeling self-worth. That's the key to feeling self-esteem. Self-esteem is not a state that you have or don't have. It depends upon how you look at yourself and what standards you use to look at yourself through and with. If you look at yourself and compare yourself to who you want to be in some perfect ideal, you're going to be miserable. Compare yourself to your friends and how good or bad they do, you're going to be miserable. If you compare yourself to some fixed standard of who it is that you're supposed to be, you're going to be miserable. If you seek continuous self-improvement and appreciate each little eensy-beensy baby step, no matter how small, along the way, you're going to be happier.